Well, looks like I'm live. What's interesting is everyone that calls, like just about everyone, unless they've worked with me in the past with this stuff, is they're like, Jeff, uh, I want you to train my dog. That's cool. And I'm immediately like, I need to train you because I had trained your dog, but it doesn't mean you'll know how to keep up on it. It doesn't mean you'll be able to maintain those results, so to speak. So when we go to do dog training sessions, we'll actually have the majority of the time when it comes to our severe cases or anything that's not a puppy even, is have our clients put the dog up before I arrive. Now, the majority of people, they're like, no, we want you to come and see our dog go nuts. And, you know, if you're a doctor, I guess, and you know how to identify a flu, right? It's very rare. You might be surprised and go, oh, I'm sorry, I misdiagnosed you. It wasn't a flu. It's like, no, that's a common cold. Got it. Or whatever. So in my world, I've been doing it long enough that someone could just describe to me the issue the dog's having, and I pretty much know the solution. Why? Because it's almost the same solution for everyone. Like, no, don't get me wrong. Like, it's vastly different, but at the same time, it's the same. It's a weird paradox where, let's say person A, dog's jumping. Person B, their dog's biting. Person C's dog is fearful. Person D's dog pees on the furniture, so on and so forth. Even though it's effectively, like essentially, it's a different solution for everyone, it's also the same because where they're struggling is a couple areas, maybe more. I haven't counted them. We're just talking about it loosely. I won't try to number it. But one of the areas that comes up is just misaligned expectations, or just, they're just unrealistic or just not reality based, or I don't know the right way to really put it. Hopefully you can catch what I'm saying. But the expectations are just bizarre. It's like, buying a non-Mac computer and expecting it not to get a virus when you surf the internet and download music all day or something. I don't know. Like certain things, it's just like, yeah, that's going to happen. So for me, someone's like, oh, I want my dog to come off leash, when they're distracted. And it's like, you know what? It's just weird to begin with, because if you think about it, like if a dog's distracted, how's it going to come? It is distracted. So the only way to get it to come necessarily when distracted would be for you to get your dog's focus so that it wasn't distracted, right? How proficient are you at any task when you're distracted? Okay. That's why multitasking is on such the downswing. It was cool when I was growing up. But these days they're like, oh, no, multitasking, that's the devil. Why? Because if you multitask, you can't be focused any which direction. And that's also true in entrepreneurship, where most will try to push someone toward one area of focus, which is a whole nother topic for another day. But back to the dog thing, the expectation is, hey, I want my dog to come, when it's distracted. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I'll ask them a question like, well, how does your dog do it? Stay? And they're like, oh yeah, stay? Not at all. Yeah, dog won't stay. Okay. So you want your dog to come when distracted, but you can't get it to stay when it's not distracted? Oh, no. It'll stay for a treat. I say sit, it sits, it stays until I hand it the treat. And I'm like, that's cute. It's cute. It's the way a lot of people show up. And that's okay. That's all right. But like, how much better would it be if you told your dog stay and it stayed till you told your dog to get up and then it got the treat? Like, what a tiny little shift. And so many people get frustrated because they're like, I don't want to do it wrong. I'm doing it wrong. No, you're a loving human being that's a compassionate creature that took on the mothership or fathership of an entirely different species. Kudos to you. You're awesome. So first off, like, get rid of all that frustration. Like, what all you're trying to do is help. And sometimes you might feel like you're hurting because you're like, I tried this technique, it didn't work. I bought a book on the internet, did nothing. Bought this special leash for $100 thinking it'd make my dog stop pulling, and it didn't. Or, whatever someone's frustration is. I talk to people every day about this stuff. Someone's frustration today is, hey, you know what? The dog does it for you, doesn't do it for me. You leave, dog won't do it. You show up, the dog's good. You leave, dog's bad. Why? And that's common. That's about every day I hear that. But the reason why the dogs are bad when I'm not around is because it's fun. Why do we eat bad foods? It tastes good. Why do we speed? Most of us do it because we think we get away with it. Or we have some place to go fast for no reason at all. Or we're late and maybe have a valid reason. But in driving school, they taught us there's no reason worth speeding, which I find to be bizarre and odd. Like, did we establish a level above concrete thinking into abstract or whatever those other realms might be, of consciousness? Anyway, so people are always like, dude, my dog, it's just so bad. It's so bad. But it's good for my husband, or it's good for my wife, or it's good for when this kid's around. But when I'm alone, it's fine. But when these people are here, it's bad. But it's all conditional. And everyone wants to know why. And it's like, why? Because, hey, your dog likes doing it, period. So there's two motivators, right? There's the motivator for, hey, here's why I shouldn't do this. That's a good reason. And then there's the motivator of, here's why I should do this. And usually one's positive, one's negative. And when you look at all human decisions, they're based around those two things. So if you look at any reason why anyone does anything, it's to gain pleasure or to escape pain or escape something negative. So when we think of pain, we think physical, most of us. But the pain could be like losing a game in checkers, like the pain could be public speaking. Does that actually hurt? I don't know. I'm here live with you right now. I'm not in too much pain, I don't think. Maybe the bright lights bothering me a hair, and maybe I'm a hair overtired. But other than that, so what I'm getting at is, like, we do things for a reason. All of us do, even if the reason is unbeknownst to others. It's like the person that's doing it typically is aware somewhat of why, even if it's questionable. It's like, we kind of get it. So when your dog's bad, it's because they want to be, plain and simple, and they don't have enough reason to be good. So let's just say you had a toddler. I have one of those. I had 3 prior, so I know a little bit about toddlers. But I know way more about toddlers and children of that nature and parental relationships, not from my own children, but from working and being inside of people's homes that have children, that have grandparents, or that have family, right? And so I've learned from being in thousands and thousands of people's homes and seeing how these interactions go down. And it's so easy when I'm on a session, when they're like, why doesn't my dog listen? Why doesn't my dog listen? And their kid comes in the room and the kid's like, blah, 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 blah. And the parent's like, wait, not right now. And the kid's like, blah, 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 blah. And the parent's like, okay. Yeah. Or the parent's like, please don't do this. We're on the session. And then the kid's like, no, I don't care. And, I might just give a little eye over to the kid and back at them and back to the kid and back at them. And like, did you guys connect that or no? Did you miss it? Do you need me to show you? So if you can't get your kid to listen, and it's your kid, it's your flesh and blood, you've raised it from a puppy, or I would assume, why do you think you're going to get this foreign species to listen that doesn't speak your language? You don't speak its language unless you've been around them for a while or something like that, or you're Dr. Doolittle. It's like, what makes you think this strange species is going to want to listen to you when your own kids don't listen to you? And I know that might hurt, so I apologize for that. My own toddler doesn't listen to me well either. And I have dogs that sometimes disobey me too. Who knew? But when I train them and I put in the time, I put in the effort, I get the result. And I've been able to help thousands and thousands of people now obtain that result, while others that I've tried to help, I wasn't able to help. Not that their dog wasn't trainable. They weren't willing to change. I can't change someone that's not willing. I just can't. I don't have that kind of special powers. If I did, that'd probably make me cooler than what I am. But I don't. So all I could do is lead the water to the horse, but I can't make it eat. I said that wrong. You could lead the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink, like. So oftentimes I have people doing that where they're leading their dog to the water or to the food bowl, and they're trying desperately to get them to eat or drink. They're like swishing the food around, and they're putting pepperonis or gravy in there, and they're like doing all this stuff. And then they wonder, like, why doesn't my dog eat the kibble? And to me, this is no big deal. It's like I've been doing it so long, like the part of my humanity that was there that left me blind and ignorant is just so far removed. Like, I'm beyond that point. It's just like so second nature to me. Like it makes it hard at times to remember what it's like someone at the beginning steps of this journey of how mind-blowing these concepts can be, such as wear the leash. People go, so I should put the leash on in the house? And I'm like, yes. I never thought to do that. So you're telling me when I call my dog come and they don't come, that maybe I should not do that because it's not working? Like instead of just calling them and calling them and calling them and teaching them that your words are meaningless, null and void. Okay, I don't know. It's a little strange to me. When I give a command, the way you make it a command and not a question is to quit asking it as a question. Do you want to sit? Would you like to come? Which is fine. I get it. But I mean, if you have a toddler that does speak English and you ask them something like, do you want to go to bed? The majority at the early 2 mark, up to like 3 or like, 1 to whatever. In those early stages, they're like, no, like, I don't want to sleep. This is fun. I like being awake, alive, being with people. Come on, fun, like whatever. Especially if your kid sleeps in a different room. But like, they don't want to go to bed. You can ask them, hey, do you want to eat your vegetables? Like, no, they don't want to eat the vegetables. So for one, you got to learn how to pose or pose the question right. Let me help you parents out there real quick. Would you like to finish the cartoon you're watching before bed or go to bed now? See what I did there? How do I know it works? I don't know. Been around here a little while. So what I would suggest is being your dog is not as cognizant or as good as English as your 3-year-old child might be, at least not yet, especially if you're dealing with puppies. Quit asking it as a question. Like, when you want your dog to do something, you as the dog parent need to help them perform that task so they can learn what it is. I could be waiting there for 9 years asking the 1-year-old, like pick up the, I don't know, name object, random small object in room, oh, here you go. I'll throw like 1,000 pennies on the floor and there's one that's dated 1920. And I'm like, hey, kid, go find the thing that's, penny 1920. Here's what it looks like. There's a 1920. And like, you could have this conversation all day. All those pennies, like no, they're not going to even go, most of them aren't even going to go look for the penny. They're going to go like do something else. So it's like why? Now, if your kid's engaged and they trust you and they want to have fun, yeah, maybe they're going to go look for the penny, but they might give up soon if they're not finding it. They could get frustrated. So how do you teach them what it is? I don't know. You might have to help them. How do you teach a kid their colors? I don't know. You got to help them. So when they get it wrong and you say, hey, what color is this? And it's yellow. And they're like, blue. So you go, good job. Here's a sticker. Is that what you do? Do you give them the A for effort? Or are you like, oh, I'm sorry, kid. Actually, nope. That's the wrong color. Here's the color it is. Try again. So with your dog, if you followed a similar approach, you're like, hey, dog, sit. And instead they ran away from you and you had the leash. Like, no, that's wrong. Try it again. And then maybe they downed. Okay, now we're getting close. I get it if you rewarded that. But let's say they sat and you rewarded that. Okay. Does that mean they learned? No. But for some odd reason, most people think if you teach a dog once, they know for life. Okay, maybe in certain situations, circumstances, yes, maybe. But just like human memory, it tends scientifically to erode or alter over time. So your dog's training can easily erode or alter over time. But I can't tell you the amount of number of people I've talked to that are like, dude, so yeah, you're gonna come over and train my dog, and then it won't do X, Y, or Z. And it's like, nope, sorry. It's not how it works. So the majority of my consults haven't been based around like, hey, let's get the dog out. Although that happens, that does happen. The majority of my consults are around myth busting, reality checks, and helping people get aligned expectations that are in alignment with what is possible, right? Think about it. It's like, they go to the doctor and they're like, doctor, I'd like you to help me with my sore knee. And they're like, dude, like, yeah, ice, rice. You heard about it. It's like rest, ice, compression. I don't know. The last one is exercise. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Doctor of dogs, maybe. But okay, different scenario. Person comes up, doctor, I'd like to grow a toe on my forehead. Now, if you're like into genetics, like maybe if you're that kind of doctor, but I think like the common doctor that someone thinks of when we say doctor is not going to help you grow a toe on your forehead. They're like, dude, this is a misaligned expectation. So it's like, first we want to manage expectations. So a big part of what happens on the consults is I help people understand through analogy, through conversation, through example, through my own personal stories, sometimes helping them with their own stories that they might share with me. And then I help them see them through a different lens, different view, another light. And suddenly they wake up and there's like this awakening. And they're like, I'm ready. I now know how to train my dog. And I've been on so many sessions like that where they have not needed me back because the awakening happened. They understood and like, boom. I'm not saying they didn't need me back necessarily. I think everyone needs to train to a level beyond where they are currently because another level exists, and why not go there? You know what I mean? I see so many people where it's like, yes, it's good, but it could be so much better. And I was actually helping someone tonight who was rather frustrated that their dog hadn't achieved certain things yet. But when she was then demoing what her dog could do, I would be like, whoa, hold up. The majority, I'm not saying everyone, the majority of people that I know, that I've worked with, that I've come across, would be head over heels in love with the dog you've already created. But you want more. And I said, boy, oh boy, girl, oh girl, is it my desire for the majority to be where you are now currently. But most people don't even know the level she achieved exists. I mean, she's out there with this dog off leash, no invisible fence, and trusts it to a certain degree. And it listens pretty good. And it walks for her pretty nicely. And it does most of the things she asks. And for the most part, it's a pretty darn good dog. And that's everybody's story. My dog's such a good dog. Okay, except for when it bites. My dog's such a good dog. Except when it eats your furniture. My dog's such a good, except when it barks and gets the cops called for the noise ordinance deal or whatever. It's like, it's such a good gun. Yeah, when it's not killing people. You know, I don't know. So again, sorry for that, but like in my world, I know it's a good dog. Yeah, it's a great dog. But that's not why I'm here. I'm not here because it's a good dog. I'm here for that 1% that you call it, or the 5% that you call it, or whatever percentage you happen to dub it that day. I'm here to help you close that gap. So if you have like a 1% problem, well, heck, if you land a plane 99% of the time, it doesn't work because that 1%, you crash it, it blows up. Like you don't get to do that over again that I know of, unless it's a flight simulator. One of my mentors is in aviation technology. Anyhow, I really appreciate that when somebody understands a thing, it can translate to a new thing. So if I get a pianist, let's say, and I'm like, hey, you know, how long did it take you to learn X song? They're like, oh my gosh, that was ridiculous. It took like months and months and months. Or the answer might be, oh, it was just a couple days. So, okay, great. Now I got something to go with. So in the case, it was like months and months. Well, how much effort did that take? Did you ever think you'd accomplish the goal? You know, I can ask all these questions. And then they get to thinking about it like, wow, yeah, geez, I put in all that time, effort, and consistency, and geez, it really did pay off. And I can play the song at the appropriate speed and all this good stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, did you put in that same consistency, time, and effort with your dog training? Oh, no. Sometimes I let him do this. Sometimes I let him do that. Okay, cool. Or sometimes, my family does this. I do that. But it's, I'd expect him to learn. I don't know. I can't fix that. I can't fix someone's lack of consistency other than equipping them with the reasons of why they need to be more consistent. Because remember, we're motivated, gaining pleasure, escaping pain. So if it's gaining pleasure, right, then now they'll have a more pleasurable experience in life when their dog is good. If it's escaping the pain, hey, you're not going to have to suffer with your dog being bad anymore when you follow these steps. But here's the interesting thing about humans. Most of us are motivated more so by guess which one? Pleasure. Nope. Wrong. Pain. I mean, go ahead and interview 10 people and see, although most of us like to think it's pleasure. I know I did. But if you think about it, it's not everyone, but let's just look at like a common character. You get this person, they have this car, and it's like, hey, you've lost a little tread on your tires. Get new ones. No, I mean, the majority of us, I think, unless I'm wrong, will wait for that tread to get lower and lower until, it's clear that we need new tires. Like, hey, you're losing your house. It's foreclosing. Well, it's not a problem until you're evicted. And they're like, get out 30 days. For most of us, like whatever. Maybe not all of us. I don't know. That was a weird one. But like in general, it's like you'll wait for the maximum amount of like stuff to go wrong before you take action. What's another one? Like, again, not everyone, because there are people that are hypochondriacs or whatever. But like, for me, like I need to be very ill or sick or like almost dead to seek medical attention. It's like, dude, you can't walk. It's okay. I got one good leg still. I could hobble. I got cry. Whatever. Where I know others, where it's like the first sniffle, it's like, oh gosh, I have some deadly disease. Must go to hospital immediately. And I know this happened soon, like recently with me, where my daughter seemed to have a broken arm, broken rib, something. And it's like, oh, hospital, not sure. Oh, do we go? Do we not? And like a couple seconds later, she was absolutely fine. I'm so glad I didn't take her. For all those who are like, bad dad, no, so glad I didn't take her. I'd exposed her to the radiation from the x-rays unnecessarily and whatever else, even though they say it doesn't matter, whatever. I don't know. So for me, I'm glad I avoided that visit. I would have avoided the exposure to all the other sick people or viruses floating around at the hospital or whatever. I don't know. But if she'd have continued that and wouldn't have been able to sleep from pain, she was going in. That was my decision. It's like, well, it's bedtime. If she can't go to bed, we're going in. But that's the tendency, right? I know that's mine. It's like, well, if it's not that bad, we don't need to do nothing yet. And unfortunately, that doesn't play out well most of the time in life. I know it certainly doesn't play out well in dog training. So if you notice there's an issue, you ask your dog to do something and they don't, and then time passes and you ask them again and they don't, and then time passes and you ask them again and they don't, and then somewhere they finally do it. It's not bad, right? Because they haven't done nothing horribly wrong yet. They could, right? Could easily equal something bad. Even if it's not to another individual, it could be bad or harm that your dog does to themselves, right? From lack of knowledge. Whew. It's deep sometimes. I'm trying to swim through this stuff, right? Swimming. So when someone says, hey, dog, come, and the dog doesn't come, it's thinking about, do I want to listen or not? Or it's thinking, what did you just say, human? Right? Or it can't hear, like it's just deaf. But like, if your dog knows what you're saying, it's just sitting there looking at you funny, that's a problem in the leadership chain, right? So like, if your boss was like, hey, right now, get up and go do this, and you did it after they asked you 4 or 5 times, would you keep that job? I don't know. If yes, your boss is very nice. But I know a lot of employers and companies that would go, you know what? I asked this person to do it. They did not do it. It's very weird. My camera's not turning back on. Let me give it a quick off and on here, see if that fixes it. Uh-oh. Did I kill the camera? Oh my gosh, I think I killed the camera. All right, we're going to switch to a less cool camera. Give me 1 sec. Didn't mean to kill the camera. I don't know how the heck I did that. All right, let's see here. We're almost back to action. Camera, mic, select a different one. And let's try this puppy out. Maybe not as visually appeasing, but there we go. Gets the job done nonetheless. So I have to train myself to look at this spot now, down here. So when you get a dog and it doesn't listen, it's not a problem till it is. So imagine like, now your dog's chasing a squirrel into traffic and you call them and they don't come right away. You call them twice, they don't come right away. And they're approaching that traffic. Squirrel's now in the traffic. You're calling them, they're still not coming. And now here's the car smashing. It's like, whoa. So what could be or seem like an insignificant lack of your dog's ability to listen could be a major issue if it gets out of hand. And I'm not saying it would, but it could. I had someone very, 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 very near and dear to me that I think about every day. And this person's was a brother to me, even if not through blood. And there was an issue with the car. And on the way, that day was going to get that issue fixed, led to that car crashing and taking the life of him and somebody else. Now, it's tough to see it when it's not you. It really is. One of the things we heard a lot in school was, nobody thinks it'll happen to them till it does. And I know, I'm looking at the wrong camera. Sorry. Let me put a lens cap on this thing, then I won't look at it. But everyone thinks it's not going to happen to them till it does. Let me also move this down. This will help. Okay. But what I found out is there's the first time for everything, period. So even if nothing's bad happened in that moment, it could. So it's like, what can we do to tip the scales in our favor or to make the odds better so that the odds of our dog listening in the moment we need our dog to listen, it will actually happen? Well, that comes with training, right? And so for some of us, it doesn't matter. It's like, whatever, got this ganglion cyst, I'll live with it. Others like must remove cyst immediately. And so for me with the dog training thing, it's like, I don't know where else this could go. I don't want the cancer to spread, so to speak. So if the dog's showing there's an obedience issue, then it's not a dog issue. You ready for this? It's a leadership issue. I was just talking to my friend Linda, and she's in the leadership space. And she's putting this cool quiz together to help assess people and where they fall in their leadership roles. She helps leaders and business owners and been in the corporate world a bunch. And you know what? It always falls on leadership because you can't blame the ones that are under you or the ones that you're responsible for. It's not their fault. It's your fault as leader. So me as the leader or supposed dog owner or dog dad or dog, whatever you want to call it, if my dog's out of control, that's not my dog's fault. That's my fault. And I know that's tough. And I don't like that conversation either. And, I was in tears over it first time I had it. And for me, it had nothing to do with the dogs in this scenario. It had everything to do with me, my life, and it being out of control or not the way I wanted it to be. And my coach at the time telling me very hard and straight up, hey, it's your fault. And I'm like, no. Here's the reason why, because this person did this person did that, this situation happened, this blah, 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 blah. And they're like, no, you, dude, you're responsible for you. You're an adult. This is on you, brother. You got to change. And I'm like, whoa, no. I thought everything else had to change. And that's why poor me. And I'm like a slave or captive to this life that I'm in. And this person's like, no, you make the change. You're responsible. So when my dog doesn't listen, again, this is me, not you, this is me. I go, whoa, Jeff, get your crap together, dude, because this could lead to something bad. So I need to fix this. And so what does fixing it like? Well, again, if you're a musician and you miss a note, you're going to play that bar over and over again, aren't you? You're going to play the bars that surround it over and over again, aren't you? Then eventually you're going to play that whole song through till you feel so comfortable. You're going to do it blindfolded. You're going to do it on one leg if your instrument allows. Like, you're going to do everything you can so that next time that happens, you don't miss a note. So if you compete with your dog professionally and your dog messes up a particular agility thing, or messes up a particular obedience routine, or messes up a particular part in the Schutzlin, whether it's the obedience tracking or the protection, like whatever it is, that's the part you focus on. It doesn't mean you negate the others completely, because life and dog training feels at times like a juggling act where, you know, if you don't pay attention and you focus too much here, all the other balls drop, and you don't want to let the balls drop, but you know, you could be juggling and throw one ball really high and just be chilling with the rest and throw the other one really high. And so you're focusing on that one ball, but you're keeping the others in the air. And that's what I want you to do with this dog training stuff, is don't negate, don't completely let that other stuff go. But heck, if your dog already sits basically automatic for dinner time, that's not helping you anymore. You know, you want to maintain that, but now let's press your dog in an area that they don't want to sit for you for. That's where we need to focus. That's what's going to change things for you. And with that, I've realized I probably need to help Dawn because she needs to bathe dogs. What a weird, awkward ending. But I do feel like I've went over my allotted time tonight. I was just all fired up, and I'm like, man, I never get a chance to, or at least I'm not taking the time to be here with all you beautiful people as much. So Lisa Renee, hi, how are you doing? Charlotte, you're the best. Scott, what's up, buddy? If anybody needs help, Scott is a wonderful person to talk to. I believe he will be on his 11th service dog coming up. And Charlotte also is filled with a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this dog training stuff. So, you know, take heed, ladies and gentlemen. So you have to be training at all times and don't stop. That leadership shows a lot to your dog. I 100% agree, Charlotte. That's so huge, because people want to be like, I don't know, halfway pregnant, right? It's like, no, you're either pregnant or you're not. It's like either your dog respects you or it doesn't. And yes, I understand maybe your dog doesn't respect you in all situations and circumstances yet. But if there's like this general underlying lack of respect, unless your dog's getting something good out of you, whether it's the treats or the whatever, that could be an issue, you know, could be. Because in absence of that treat or that motivator, if your dog doesn't give you the time of day or doesn't want to hear what you have to say, that's probably an issue. So we probably have to use those motivators differently. And Caroline, how are you doing? So Caroline said, I'm trying to get them to stop barking at the mall truck. Okay. Mail truck. Sorry, not a mall truck. Is that a thing? A mall truck? So a mail truck, easy peasy. I know what Scott would tell you. The way Scott has brought it up in class before. We have this cool place, Canine Connect 360. It's kind of awesome. That we have a group of dog people, dog owners, dog parents that meet pretty weekly. And what we do is we help people through wherever they're stuck and to get them to the other side. And I know Scott has been a huge asset and helpful in this way. And so when someone comes with a barking issue, one of the things he'll talk about, which I strongly agree with, is like, look, and he has a really cool accent too. The way he'll tell you it's Bach, I think. But so with the barking, just throwing a little jab there, Scott, as a very buddy kind of thing, because I love your accent. But with the barking, what'll happen is if you can teach your dog to bark on command and have an on-off switch for that, it starts to carry over. So dogs can generalize and take what they've learned one place and put it somewhere else. Now, the easiest way to do this, Caroline, if you haven't done it yet, is the next time your dog's barking, instead of trying to say, quit barking, why don't you try praising your dog instead? Most dogs just stop barking right then and that second because they're like, this is weird and awkward, and where am I? Is this a dream? But your dog's barking, like, good speak or good sing. We like using the word sing. But you can name it whatever you want to do. If you want to have the illusion of a protection dog, good guard. You know, it's like, Gib laut would be the German for that. Or, it's like whatever you want to connect there. So dog's barking, you're like, good job, good job. And then when you want your dog to be quiet, well, it's tough to bark and chew. If you've ever tried it, it's tough, especially if the food's good. So definitely try that. I'd probably not. Have the vacuum around if you do. Don't do it with soup. Okay. But what I'm getting at is when you're ready for your dog to stop barking, have a treat yummy enough. It has to be yummy enough. If it's not yummy enough, it does not work. Okay? It's got to be good. It's got to be the good stuff. Food right under nose. Oh, now that they're biting, good quiet or good silencio or good hush or good whatever. But now you want a command or a word to cue your dog to be quiet. Now, just like in the Pavlovian experiment, if you ring the bell and there's the food and food in the bell, like eventually the bell will equal the food and they salivate whether the food's there or not. And then if you stop doing that, eventually the pairing will disconnect. And then if you do it again, you can get it back, yada, yada. Okay. So for your dog, you want to be pretty consistent on this, and you want to do it in the area where your dog doesn't need help with barking. So I'm willing to bet if your dog barks at the mail truck, there's other things your dog barks at where it's less severe, that maybe you do have semi-control, where sometimes you can get them to stop, maybe other times not. And maybe there's other areas where your dog will completely, hate that word submit, but submit to your demands and go, okay, cool, I give. Your way, not my way, because I trust that your way is better. So let's see. I've used the lay down position and redirect their attention. Of course, I get the grr back talk from them. Great. They stay in the lay down position until the truck leaves. I walk backwards and ask them to come to me and sit. Then I reward them as that good. Yes and no. So again, good, better, best. What you're doing is so good, it's beyond exceptional. Most people wouldn't have figured that part out. So you have them in a down position, but you redirect their attention. How? If you're using the treat to redirect their attention, that's where, in this case, not talking about the barking, but just making your dogs less reactive toward that situation, period, is where we need to desensitize them to that stimulus. And oftentimes when we're getting their attention and the stimulus is occurring, it can take like significantly a long period of time before the dog puts two and two together. Because as soon as you don't distract, they will then interact and react in a reactive way toward that stimulus again. Not to say that if you did it long enough that your dog would indeed expect that treat reward in that moment, but what most dogs will do, oh, thanks for the reward. Woof, 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 and now go right back to barking. So what I would do, and let's see, we got some more comments here. Okay. Yeah, let me know what you do to get their attention if you can, Caroline. But when it comes to getting attention, I find everybody does this backwards as can be. For me, personally. I saw it go down with a service dog recently. Scott, I don't know if I told you about that, but it was a bummer. And someone was training a service dog, and their dog was being highly reactive, and they kept trying to treat it in the moments of calm. And all that happens, the dog got more reactive as it got closer. Meanwhile, the dogs that we had were not doing that. And why? Because what we were doing was rewarding for when they consciously chose on their own free will to give us attention. We reward that. Yep. Crazy, right? I know. Mind-blowing. Again, referencing a session from earlier. This person was walking and then telling the dog, good job. Then the dog would look at them. They would then give the treat. And then the dog would pursue to be bad for a period of time and then would be good and go through that cycle. For me, I'm like, look, the one thing you could do to take what you're doing now that is good and make it better is when you praise your dog, you can praise them all you want, but don't give a treat for general praise. Now, this is someone whose dog this person's been training this dog for a while. So it's not stage one, ladies and gentlemen. We would not do this with a stage one dog per se. But this person's been training for a while. So at their stage, the stage they're in, it's like, hey, what I want you to do is praise your dog as much as you want, no treat. But when your dog consciously chooses to look at you, make a giant deal about it, name that, treat that, boom. Watch what that does. Now, instead of your dog, looking everywhere and waiting to hear the name to look back and get a treat, now your dog is going to be focused on you. And if they're focused on you and they're looking at you, what are they not looking for? Trouble. Ladies and gentlemen, if your dog is looking at you, they're not looking for trouble unless you've really ticked them off, in which case maybe they are. But most of the time, When our dog looks at us, they are looking for guidance. Okay? When you look up to someone, funny term, right? Because you could look up to someone that's shorter than you. But when you look up to someone, what are you doing? You're putting them on the pedestal, if you would. But you're looking to them for guidance, right? You look up to them, you take what they say heavier. There's more weight in their conversation than, let's say, a conversation with someone you look down upon, which I don't suggest doing that with people, but I get it. So, got it. So that's true. They react, then act. Yeah. So I would put them in the down position, but your trick to this would be show them the food. This is, again, first stage from where you are. And it's like, if they don't want to look at it, okay, great, don't. But you're not allowed to bark, and you must stay in a down. Now, for me in stage 0, let's say, like if I can get a down and they're barking, I'll take it. Then I'll make a requirement to down without barking, but you're allowed to whine, subtle grunts and growls. So that sounds more like where you're at. Then I push to the stage of, okay, if you can't be quiet, then don't look at it, right? Out of sight, out of mind. So now I'm going to try to direct my dog. Here's a dog. And if you have a leash on, you pull the leash this way. I have a leash. For anybody that doesn't know this, if your dog's not wearing a collar, which this dog is not, you can create a slip lead like that very easily. So I got a slip lead. So I'm going to pull the leash one direction as I turn the body another way, right? So if my dog's facing this way, and I want them to face the other way, I'm going to grab this hip and turn them. Now, if your dog is a giant mastiff or your dog is like, 200 pounds or so, it still works. It's just harder. Might take a little more effort, but if you find the right spot on that hip and you use the leash in the right way, it's pretty easy, right? It's just physics. Just like you have a really, 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 really heavy object, and if you use the right puller or have the right lever, thank you, Archimedes, you could move the world. Okay, I think that's what he said. He said something like that, or somebody else. Okay, so what about a dog that gets scared and gets defensive out of nowhere? Well, it's not out of nowhere. They have a reason. It might appear out of nowhere to us, right? So oftentimes the body could be having symptoms that don't show themselves where everyone else can see it, but somebody else knows. So maybe somebody's has an injured knee and they're walking fine, even though they're in pain, but no one can see it. Now, when their bone's sticking out of the knee and there's blood everywhere, everyone's like, whoa, what's going on? So what I'm getting at is the part you're seeing is like the bone sticking out of the knee, but you might not be seeing what's leading up to that moment, like, or what caused that or how it got that bad. Maybe it was just like a hairline fracture and then compounded and then whatever the one is they call it where it breaks through. I don't know. I haven't been in nursing school in years. But what happens is this. There's usually a reason, and if you can't figure out what that stimulus is, go back a step. You have to find some sort of pattern. The pattern is what leads us on. So if I'm like, whoa, what made that dog go nuts? I completely don't understand. It just happened out of nowhere. Okay, if you really don't know and you're really bummed out and like, what the heck? Neurologist, it's expensive. Do it. It's very cheap in the long run just to know right away, is there something wrong with the dog upstairs that's making that happen? Now, if we rule that out, now it's time for training. But I always recommend to everyone, get medical opinions first before you seek dog training help, oftentimes, because if it seems out of nowhere, there could be something wrong with the dog. There could be ulcer, pressing on the brain or tumor or whatever, triggering that. And that's what I would need to rule out before I delved into that. But if I ruled that out, I'm like, okay, it's definitely something. Now, the something could be a noise. The something could be time that's passed. And maybe 5 minutes has passed. It's time to make a weird sound and get my mom's attention. But usually it's something. I've seen dogs be reactive toward their reflection. I've dealt with dogs that have been reactive toward ceiling fans. I've dealt with dogs that have been reactive toward boxes, dogs that have been reactive to blow up animals. Tammy has these cool little, she has a Balto. It's like a husky blow up dog, literally like a dog, like you would get a blow up doll or like a raft or something you would blow up. It's like a dog, that you blow up. It's not real, right? You just blow it up. And we've had dogs try to kill those dogs, like, because they thought they were real. They were reactive to the blow up little doggy. So there's always a reason, right? It's like, well, what's going on that they're getting scared? So Caroline said, could it be the dog is scared because they don't know how to socialize well? Totally. Anything that we don't understand, we typically fear. They say, what was it? The theory of man is like conquer what you don't understand. If you fear it, conquer it, nothing to worry about. It's gone. Like, ooh, there's some weird animal in the house. Kill it. We don't know if it's harmful or not. Kill it. Okay, so with the dog, if they don't understand it, reactivity is easy. Now, if they do understand it, reactivity is easy. And if you react in a positive way to their reactivity is easy. It's like a solution. It's like my human acknowledges me when I act this way. So like a baby or a toddler, a kid, or a husband or wife, it's like any attention is better than no attention, whether positive or negative. And the way the human mind works initially is it has to filter through positive, negative. Okay, ready? I want you to not think about the color blue. Ready? Don't think about the color blue. Don't. I said the word don't first, and your brain immediately thought about blue. So then you'd have to filter that and go, wait, don't think about blue, and then think about brown or just the absence of blue. But initially, when we give the command, don't do something, the brain immediately does it. Now tell me how weird that is. Or I guess you can't because I'm live on Facebook. But if we were in a real conversation, you could tell me, and I'm sure you'd say it's pretty weird, Jeff. But that's true in like all situations and circumstances. So for your dog, you moved to a new house? Okay. Okay. Note to self, read comments before hitting the little comment show button. But you get what I'm saying, where when a dog is scared, oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. So how do we get over fear? We confront it, we face it. The worst thing someone could do is when the dog's fear, are you okay? Are you scared? Even though that's one of the best things you can do with a child, or not. Anyone that's been around children a lot, like if you're in a daycare or something like that, if a kid takes a biff and they fall or something, right? And they just take a spill. If you don't react and wait for them to react, there's a high probability, if they're not actually injured, that they don't react. There's a higher probability, if they're not injured and you react, that now they will act injured. It has to do with acknowledgement. And that's why I was getting ready to take my little girl to the hospital last night, because she's a tough baby. That baby's like a Bruce Lee. It's like a ninja. It never gets hurt, like ever. So when she was crying, I'm like, oh my gosh, like she has to really be hurt. Now, our mom knew better. I got suckered in. So anyhow, fear you don't acknowledge unless it's to correct. It sounds really bad. But what is a correction? It's a good thing. Sounds bad. I don't want to be corrected, but isn't a correction a good thing? If you were to be delivered a product through Amazon and that Amazon was the wrong order, wouldn't you want to correct that order? Wouldn't you want it to be made right? So to correct is to make right in Jeff's book of definitions, which doesn't exist except for the verbal edition. This is before written word. So if it's to make right, don't you want to make your dog's fear right? Yeah, you want to correct it straight up and down. Yep, correct it. So what would correcting it look like? If my dog's fearful and tries to hide, I'm going to get them out and not let them do that. If they're shaking and like, oh my gosh, I'm dying, I'm not going to acknowledge that. I'm just going to wait for them to stop shaking as much and acknowledge that. And then over time, when they're not shaking at all, acknowledge that. Before you know it, they're not shaking. How do I know? I've been doing it a while. That's why I'm confident, because I've done it enough. I just know it works. Now, maybe on my like 100,000th and 20th dog, it won't work, and I'll have to re-question the other 119,000. But, for now, this is what's working. So, okay. So boys and girls. Oh, Kendra. What's up, Kendra? That's my sister. Brothers with her brother, Ra. So Kendra said we moved in a new house and my Shih Tzu barks at everyone and never did before. Is it anxiety? Can be. So whenever your dog is in a new situation or circumstance they haven't been prepped for, there's a little anxiety. It's just like us, most of us. If you go to a new place and you know nobody, Are you less anxious or more anxious than when you're in the room with a bunch of people you know? I don't know, because if it's people you don't like, you could be less anxious around the strangers. But for most people, when you're around the comfort of the people you like, know, and trust, you feel less anxious, and you feel more anxious in the presence of thine enemies or strangers. Now, dogs, they look at all strangers as thine enemy, potentially, unless they've been conditioned and socialized enough not to. But most dogs are going to go, ooh, stranger danger. We teach children that too. In fact, we teach children it so good that there was a little kid when I was in a dog training session that like fell and got hurt on the bike, and like no parents were around. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to help this little kid. I'm like, are you okay? I can't talk to strangers. I'm like, oh, okay. Sorry. Have at it. Boy, that little kid, leg cut open, whatever. But, I could see parents were somewhat on the way, kind of, sort of, other kids in the neighborhood. So we just continued our session. Shame on us. But we're not going to try to help the poor kid that's like, no, you cannot help me. You're a stranger. And I get it. So dogs can react the same way. So if we're not constantly socializing them and conditioning them to be around new situations and circumstances, when they enter that, things go haywire. In fact, it goes so haywire at times that someone's husband or wife could just be out of town for one extra day than normal with their work shift, and that throws everything off. It could be as silly as your throw pillow is on a different side of the couch, and that throws everything off. It could be something as silly as mealtime came at 8:01 versus 8. So any type of change in routine can change your dog's routine and behavior. Woo, that was good. I should quote that. So anyhow, there's a real easy solution for, what was it, Kendra? The Chihuahua? Let me look here again. Oh, Shih Tzu. Okay. So for a Shih Tzu, which works very well, is when they start barking, all you do is go to pick them up. Most of the time, as you go to pick them up, they stop barking. So you stop, they go right back to barking. You go to pick them up. As they stop, you stop. But if they don't, you start to pick them up. If they stop, immediately set them down. If they don't, you keep picking them up. And if they haven't stopped by the time you've picked them up, and be careful, use 2 hands. When I do it, especially if your dog is in any way, shape, or form not 100% trusting of you, I'll hold here behind the shoulders so I can control the neck. So if they went to turn to bite, they really can't. So I'll control here and scoop right under the belly and support. Now from here, what I'll do, turn on the back. So if I have the dog here and they haven't stopped barking yet, I can do this. Now, if that hasn't worked, I can baptize them. I just do a little dunk. And if that doesn't work, I turn. And then if that doesn't work, I start getting some distance. Now, are there a million ways to correct barking? Yes. I think we have 6 of them in our course, the Barkaholics Anonymous. But that's besides the point. What I'm getting at is there's plenty of ways to fix barking. But the easiest for a little dog like a Shih Tzu is the moment they start going to pick it up. I had a lady I was working with recently, and she had some dachshunds, and the dachshunds were just going batty, like with the barking. And we started implementing that tactic, and boy, did that work like a charm. Now, did it diffuse the barking for all situations and circumstances from the day one we did it? No, but it diffused the barking day one. So if you're looking to get a quick win, diffuse your barking, use that strategy. If you use it over long term, it can start to produce some positive long-term results. But you want to interrupt it, or earlier, I'm not sure if you were on then, we were discussing another strategy that Scott often recommends, where you actually put the barking on an on-off switch in a situation that maybe is like controllable, right? So if it's like a doorbell they ring at and they don't, ring, okay, you're barking, good bark, here's a treat, now you're quiet, now that you're chewing it, now ring it again, good bark, and you can train them that way. And then that can translate a little bit. So now they start barking at the neighbors, you're like, good bark, guys, okay, no, that's enough. I know I've implemented that before in the past. I know I couldn't tell you how many people that have implemented that, and it's fun, it's cool, it creates a new command, it's a trick now. So instead of trying to correct an unwanted behavior, we're just perfecting a wanted behavior, which is control over the barking. Okay, Kendra says we do pick her up and she does stop. Great advice. The holding advice is great. Different options, maybe different potions. Sorry, but good. Now it's going to be about getting your neighbor to interact with the dogs. And one of the ways to do this is when they are quiet, now let the neighbor offer them something good for being quiet. So instead of us giving the reward, hey, good quiet, we let the neighbor do it. And then that builds the value with the neighbor, which is awesome. Okay. Okay. So, so I know I'm going to be corrected soon if I don't hop off this thing. But one other option for you. So when they bark, if you have them on a leash, walk the other way. It sounds so nuts. It's so easy. But it's like I'm walking and, roof, 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 and then you're like pulling in the end of the leash to get the neighbor, and I start going the other way. Now, little dog probably definitely want to do the harness thing here, especially if they're pulling hard. You want to be careful with a little dog. It takes a lot of mastery and sensitivity with leash pressure to avoid injury when they're straining hard to get to someone. But when you back them up enough, because they're going to be barking, right? When you get them far enough away, they're going to turn. And in that moment they turn, that's when we might ask for the sit. That's when we might ask for the down and see, can they do it from this distance? Now, all dogs that bark will stop barking when the thing they're barking at is far enough away, period. But that'll give you another easy one for right now, okay? And, again, think to the on-off switch by putting it on command. We like doing sing, or if it's a protection dog, you can do like guard, but you find a way to make it fun, so it's something that you'll want to do. Perfect. All right, everybody. I'm going to go help Dawn, who hopefully isn't going to hurt me for taking so long. All right. Everybody have a good one. If you have questions, make sure to ask. I have a free dog training group. Ask Jeff the Dog Trainer. Feel free to post a question there. And when I hop on these lives, I always go through those lists of questions. All right.